Brandon Snyder. You can call me Brando, even though nobody that's participating tonight will be talking, and we'll kind of talk through some of that. But I'm just here to introduce Mike Evans, the guest speaker we have for what we're calling Master Talks. And this is the first training of summer training that's being offered, and I'm really stoked, as we all are, to see over 20 people here. That is great. And Francis and Noah apologize for not being on. They were unavailable. And I'll just tell you, Francis and Noah, the training managers at Breck and Vale, have put a ton of time into this and collaborated with pretty much all schools in Vale to make this happen. It's something that kind of started, when was it, Mike? 3, 4 summers ago, out of Vale proper, and used a lot of Vale training staff to facilitate these. And now it's become much more streamlined, and we're looking to have it staffed by trainers from multiple resorts. We put that invitation open to pretty much all Vail schools to include their trainers in on this. So there's going to be some great individuals like Mike that are leading these master talks, and then as we get into more of the substance, you will be able to participate. Tonight, it's a recorded meeting, so with feedback, we know that you guys don't like being recorded when you're talking. So the only person that's going to talk tonight is Mike. We will have and he's going to ask you guys this, to put questions in the chat about what you'd like to see next week, which will be a more interactive session. Am I correct on that, Mike?
Yeah, and we'll go over that here shortly.
Cool. And with that said, I just wanted to make sure I put in the line for Francis Doe and Noah Hopkins, who have spent a ton of hours making this happen, and now we're finally here. And how this is set up is to have big speakers like Mike Evans come in and give us about a 45-minute talk, and then get some feedback from you guys and see if this could be beneficial to you throughout the summer. Because as you know, this is going all summer, and I see a lot of people that I recognize names and faces, and that's awesome. And I hope there's double the amount next week. So with that said, I'm going to put a link into the chat several times right now with 24 of you in the room, and I'll do another one in about 20, 30 minutes, but that's the roster. So you're going to click on that link in the chat, and that's put your name and the information into that roster. And that's how we're going to track this for all the teams this summer. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat, or Francis or Noah, which you guys should all have communication from. And if you don't, let me know, and I'll get you squared away. And with that said, without further ado, a guy that's been a big inspiration to me, a huge reason why I tried out for Kids Ed staff. And, he's a great leader and inspirational leader, I'll say, on the kids education team. So Mike Evans, take it home.
Thanks, Brandon. So everybody, welcome to the start of summer training. Yeah, a couple caveats. Again, this is the first one of the summer, so if there's a couple of hitches in the giddy up, we'll get those figured out. We are the trial run for this. So I'm going to kind of kick it off just with a little PowerPoint presentation. We're going to be going in and out of this. And again, my training style, if any of you guys that know me, is a lot more interactive than what we're going to do tonight. So to back up, yep, I'm Mike Evans. I'm based out of Vale, and I've been teaching there. I'm an instructor, been teaching there for 23 years, and I've been on the children's education training team in the Rocky Mountain region for a lot of those. So a lot of passion in this. So that's me. Let me get this going. It's just going to take a second because there's so many of you to get it loaded everywhere. Has everybody seen that screen? Now I just got to move this thing so that I can make it happen. Do it earlier. Well, if I can't, that's all right. It'll go away. All right, we're just gonna play with it like this for now until I can figure out how to move that bar and get this to go into the play mode. Can everybody see that screen? Can I get a thumbs up? Let's see who's on my screen. Alan, you're on my screen. You can see it. Perfect. So first thing we're going to do is kind of go over what the heck are we doing this summer, all right? So the way that this is going to break down, and this is all disciplines. So children's, alpine, snowboard, and adaptive are going to all follow this same kind of framework where we're going to start off with some sort of master talk. And the word master comes from in honor of Ron LeMaster. If anybody had the privilege to go to any of his presentations when he was alive, they were amazing. I mean, that is some big shoes to try to fill, and it's an honor to be a part of something named after him. So this is recorded. So therefore, if you can't make it throughout this entire summer, make sure that you at some point hit this recorded master talk, and those are going to get uploaded to a YouTube page. And I believe Francis said that information is going to go out on Friday of how to get these links. All right. Next week, we're going to be doing some clarification on this topic. All right. And that's the way it's going to work. So tonight, it's just me presenting, talking. I still do want some interaction from you guys in the chat, so don't just shut off on me. But then next week, it's going to be a lot more interactive, kind of more what we're used to. So conversations, breakout rooms, group development. All right. So clarification on this topic. Then the next week following that is more pinpointed practice. So how do we put it into practice? And then we follow that with application. So those of you that are here getting ready for assessments, that's that final stage in this is great. How do we take this and put it towards not only our job to make us better at what we do, but how do we get ready for an assessment next winter? Okay. Topics. Kian, I'm going to mute you.
Non, mon razon,
See if I can. Topics. This first month is going to be all in the cognitive realm. So tonight's a master talk on the cognitive realm. Then we're going to go through clarification, a deeper dive, practice on it, and application. Then in July, we're going to move into the affective realm. Then we're going to move into the psychomotor realm. And then we have two new kind of fun topics, liable to change slightly, but right now we've got them planned in is creativity and synthesis, followed by play, exploration, and exploring. Two other things to note, there are two wildcard presentations. So jot these down, June 30th and September 29th. And the wildcard presentation is going to bring in a guest speaker that's going to be for all disciplines. It's the only presentation that's going to be that week, and they should be really special. So we are running these children's ones every Monday, 6 o'clock, all the way through October 27th, no break, right? So again, we understand that people have busy schedules. You're not expected to have to show up every week. If you can make it to as many as you can, that is great. But just know that there will always be a recorded master talk about the priority topic that you can go find. So let's say you can only show up on week 3 of one of these. Watch that recorded master talk first so you kind of know what we're talking about, and then you can come in and join. So if you miss one, it's not that big of a deal. All right. So children's is on Mondays. Snowboard is doing the same thing on Tuesdays. Alpine is Wednesdays, and adaptive is on Thursday. So tons of opportunities to get out there and understand what's going on. Okay. So what are we talking about tonight? The cognitive development, right? So I took this right from the Teaching Children Snow Sports Manual. You all can read, but I'll read this one out loud and then I'll stop reading off of the screen. But the C in the cap stands for cognitive development. That is how people think and perceive and how intellectual skills change over time. Intellectual skills include problem solving, identification, recall, I can't speak. Compartmentalization, memorization, evaluation, synthesis, invention, association, application of processor rules, and governing owns one learning. All right, I want to highlight that last part, governing owns one learning. So we're going to bring that in kind of after this next one. So what are we doing tonight? Well, by the end of this, it's going to be about an hour, probably a little less talking, and then we'll have some time for you guys to throw some stuff in the chat to help me prepare for next week. But we're going to understand and identify what's important. Why is it important to understand cognitive development in our students and in our teaching? And we're going to do that through understanding and using a couple different cognitive models out there that help us identify where our students are at. So what do we need to do as instructors to modify our teaching to meet those individual needs? Okay. If you're just jumping on trying to figure out what this thing is about, don't let the word children's kind of mess you up. This is going to be a multidiscipline clinic right now. It's going to be for anyone. And if you don't teach children, this is going to help you with adults as well. Okay. So my belief, the 30,000 foot view, what does this mean to me? Well, I'm out there still teaching every day, and I feel I am the most successful. I know I have been as successful as an instructor when I can speak the least, but get the most outcome or output from my students. So what does that mean? That means that I am adapting what I'm doing to speak through how they like to process. So therefore I can speak less. So many times when we're out, we like to do things. We get in our routine, we get in what feels good to us. And then we feel it's our job to make our students understand what it is that we are saying. Hopefully by the end of this evening, we can kind of question that and say, all right, great. When I'm out there teaching, am I actually trying to figure out how I can change what information and where I'm presenting this information to directly impact the student in the way that they like to think? That's what we're shooting for. All right. So we're going to start off with a little activity right now. It's June. Nobody's been on the hill teaching for a little while. All right. So what I want to do is I want you to visualize, imagine, jot down this situation. All right. Pretty easy. We're teaching a group of beginners to put on their equipment for their first time. And I want you to think about doing that to a group of 3-year-olds, and then a group of 8-year-olds, then a group of 14-year-olds, and then a group of 50-year-olds. Let's throw some adults in there. Okay. What do you do to be successful at that outcome? Right. And I'd like, if you can, just throw it in the chat, something. If there's something that works for you really well, throw it in there and maybe tie an age range to what that is. All right. So I'll stop sharing so that we can get the chat up there. And we'll give just a minute for this. Think about putting equipment on for the first time. What is something that works for you, and what age range does that work really well? Okay, has everybody had a chance to kind of think about that, put themselves in that? Okay, so let's reflect on this for a second. What was different, right? We had 3-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 14-year-olds, adults. Why was it different, right? So I'm going to stem that down into a couple different questions. Like, how many directions could you give? Is it different for a 3-year-old than a 14-year-old? Did you use imagination? What age group did that work with? Why? Right? Think about you in front of that group. Did you visualize yourself facing towards the group or in the same direction as the group? Right, let's dig into that a little bit deeper. We're talking about that laterality and directionality there. So what is laterality? That's someone understanding their own right from left. Right? I have a 3-year-old daughter, and right now it's hilarious. So in my car, her car seat's on the right side of the car, and in my wife's car, her car seat's on the left side of the car. And it's fascinating. Anytime we're driving, she brings this up. She goes, "Daddy, I'm on the right side." And anytime we're turning, she's going, are we going my way? Are we going to the right? Oh, but in mommy's car, it would be different. So even at 3, she's starting to get this idea of a difference between right and left, but there isn't ownership of it. She can only visualize it when she's in that situation in the car and brings attention to it. Think about how many kids are out there, maybe even some of us on this call, that when we think right and left, we go ahead and throw those fingers up. And we're like, wait, which one's left? Okay, it's here. It takes cognitive processing to understand our right and left. And then with that, we start to figure out which side we'd like to use more. All right. When it comes to directionality, now that is understanding somebody else's left from right. Now this becomes really important when it comes to our teaching and our presentation style. So if I have a bunch of littles in front of me and I'm facing them and I say, everybody raise your right hand, they're just going to mirror me and they're probably going to put up their left hand because again, their understanding of their own right and left is limited. And then definitely their understanding of somebody else's right and left probably doesn't exist. So what are some things that we can do to kind of help take some of this cognitive process out? Well, we can face the same direction as the student, not use the word right and left. We can tie in, putting stickers on a ski or a board, so a red and a green, so that we can talk in terms of lifting our right foot or right ski or our green ski or our red ski, trying to stay away from that right and left. Even with adults that are learning, right? Let's take that cognitive thought process out. Let's help them. Let's take that piece of information so that they can work towards the outcome they're trying to get to. All right. So again, this activity is just trying to get the brain spinning, get us back into this realm. But this is also an example of kind of something that might happen later in one of these weeks where instead of me just talking, this could be a situation that's put up here that you guys can kind of talk through and learn from each other. Right? Okay. So what we're talking about is Piaget's cognitive stages of development. All right. I'm going to stop screening because I'm going to pull that from something else. So I'm going to give you guys a break from me and you guys are going to watch a little video. I'm also going to put it in the chat just in case it's kind of blocky just because of what happens in the internet. Warning, this is an old video, but I like it because it does show kids in situations that they actually use in the tests for some of the cognitive development. It is 6 minutes long. So what we're going to do is first, I'm going to throw it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to play it just for the recording, but it's in the chat. Now I'm going to share the screen and play it off of mine. So you've got 2 options here. Sorry for the jumbledness of it. I think I'm going to keep it small because that seems to help with the streaming.
New babies aren't quite sure what happens to objects when they leave their sight. Sky's mom keeps disappearing and reappearing. No wonder peekaboo is so much fun. During their first year, however, infants will learn an important concept: object permanence. Everything has a life of its own, even if it is out of sight.
At Maya's age, babies know to look for the object, but they might not have everything else straight. 10-month-old Simon is about to make a classic mistake. Although he watched us place the toy plane under the white cloth, he'll look for it where he last found it, not where he watched us hide it.
Can you look at these 2 glasses? Do you think that they have the same amount of juice? You think they have the same? Okay. Now we're going to pour this juice into this glass. Now, do you think that this glass has more juice, this glass has more juice, or do you think that they have the same amount?
That one has more.
This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more?
Because it's taller.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more quarters, or do they have the same?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
They're the same?
5, 5.
Okay. Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more, or do they have the same?
This would have more.
That one has more quarters?
Yeah.
Why does this row have more quarters?
Because it's more far away.
It's more far away.
Yeah, it's like more far away than like that. It's like bigger.
All right, we're gonna play a game with the graham crackers, and we're gonna share them between me and you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Do you think that we shared those fairly?
No,
No, why not?
you have those and I have this.
Well, what if we try this? Okay, can I put this down right there?
Okay.
Now is it fair?
Yeah,
Yeah, why is it fair now?
because we both have two.
Can you tell me what you see when you look at that from where you're sitting? What are some of the things that you see?
A cat
A cat.
and a tree and a bone.
Okay, now we're gonna do the same thing. Can you tell me what you see when you look at it from that stool?
An owl.
An owl.
A pin.
What is that?
A goat.
A goat.
Yeah,
Okay, is there anything else you see?
yeah, right there.
Right there, what is that?
A tree.
A tree.
And that's another river.
Another little tree. Right. And can you tell me what I see when I look at this from where I'm sitting right here?
Owl.
Okay.
And a goat.
Mm-hmm.
And another tree. And that. And that.
So first we're going to look at these two cups right here. Do you think there's the same amount of juice in this glass as there is in that glass? There you go. Okay. So we're going to take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one right here. Okay. So now we're going to look at this glass and that one. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass, more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do you think that they have the same amount?
Just because this is skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount. It has the same amount of juice in it, but this one is just wider and this one's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice in it.
It says, if you hit a glass with a hammer, the glass will break.
I knew that.
And then this one says, Don hit a glass with a hammer.
I knew that too.
So what happened to the glass?
It broke
It broke. Why did it break?
because the hammer's hard.
If you hit a glass with a feather, the glass will break.
No, it won't.
And this is the second one. Don hit a glass with a feather. What happened to the glass?
Nothing.
Nothing happened. Why didn't anything happen?
Because the feather's soft.
If you hit a glass with a feather, the glass will break. Okay. And the second one, Don hit a glass with a feather. What happened to the glass?
It broke
And why did it break?
because the rule says if you hit a glass with a feather, it'll break. But if you hit a glass with a feather, it broke.
Okay, so some examples of some kiddos running through some tests. So now let's break down these kind of different stages of cognitive development according to Piaget. And let's relate them also then to our job of teaching skiing and snowboarding. All right, so that first stage, sensory motor, it's kind of in that 0 to 2 year age grade. So I want you to think about if anybody here has actually raised a small child. If you haven't, have you ever had a puppy? Right? What do you have to do in your house? You have to baby proof the house. You have to puppy proof the house. What do? They want to take everything in through their senses. They want to touch it. They want to taste it. They want to feel it, right? That's how they learn. But that is super important when it comes to our own cognitive and human development. That's why we as humans learn to crawl. It's why we learn to walk, because our world becomes bigger. We can have more experiences that we can learn from, and that is what starts to unlock our cognitive development. How does this relate to us? Well, think about a student who has not seen snow before. I have an example of this. This was probably my first year teaching, because I didn't have all this information, and that's going to come into this story. I had a 4 and a 5-year-old brother and sister, and they were from, I believe, like Florida or somewhere that didn't have snow, and they came and they were so intrigued by the snow, they just wanted to keep taking their gloves off and eating the snow. But then they would cry because their hands were cold. I'd get frustrated because I'd have to put the gloves back on. Their hands are wet. It's so hard to put those gloves back on when your hands are wet. And then they'd do it again, take their gloves off, eat the snow, and then they would cry. And it was this repeating cycle. And I just got so frustrated. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Where now that I understand this stage of cognitive development, if I had that situation again, which I've had now many times, you set up an environment that says it's okay to learn through your senses right now, but we're going to facilitate it in a way that isn't going to impede the rest of the day. So let's go find a place that has some snow that's semi-clean. Let's leave our gloves on so we don't get too cold. And let's play in the snow. Let's eat it. Let's figure it out. Let's feel it. Let's taste it. Great. Now let's go learn how to slide on it. Right? Another important part is, just because we say that this is 0 to 2, that story right there was with a 4 to 5-year-old. I am going to be turning 46 in 2 weeks. And still to this day, every year after a ski season, I get to go to Florida to visit my parents. And when I go to the beach, what's the first thing I do? I kick off my shoes and I feel the sand. I live in that sensory motor world of feeling this new environment that is not my day to day. I don't stay there long, but I definitely go and explore in it. So that's going to be important to understand later on, that just because we're a certain age doesn't mean we're in a box. It's more about the data and the environment and the situation that we're in. Okay? So moving on to the next stage, which is that pre-operational stage, which here we're kind of ballparking that 3 to 6-year-old. I want to highlight first kind of this term being egocentric, right? So pulling from that video, the demonstration there of being egocentric, and the definition of this is that they can only kind of see the world through their lens. Little Timmy, that's 4 years old, totally understands what he thinks and what he sees, but he does not understand what Johnny over there or me as the instructor has a different perception, right? So in that video, that's when that little child was looking at that model. He could understand what he could see in front of him. He could describe that. Then he went to the other side and he could describe what he could see in front of him, but he could not talk about what the person that was giving that interview could see on the side that he was just at. That perception, that understanding that somebody else can see something different isn't there, right? So another example of egocentric is, let's think about toys that are out there. Toys that are very successful with this age range. So an example could be Legos, now Magna-Tiles, sorry. Building blocks, cars, Barbies. Why are these toys still so successful with this cognitive age range? Well, it's because kids can play with them next to others, but not necessarily with others. Again, very egocentric in their thinking. How many times do you walk into a room with kids playing with Legos and they're sitting there, a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds saying, hey, let's build this huge castle together? It's not what you're going to see, right? You're going to see 2 kids with Legos. They might share and pass Legos in between each other, but they're going to be building whatever they want in front of them, right? Very egocentric. Why is this important? Well, again, we need to set up an environment in our learning situation with these egocentric students that we're not trying to get them to problem solve together. We want a team atmosphere. Team names are great with this age group. Having a team environment is awesome. But when it comes to learning, we're going to want to set up an environment that they can learn individually next to their peers, not necessarily trying to solve problems together. Right? I want to talk about imagination, something big when we come into teaching. We love to use imagination. Well, what does it mean for this person in the pre-operational stage of development? Imagination has to be something in a world that they've already experienced. What do I mean by that is, let's use the movie Cars as an example, right? You could have a group of 5-year-olds out there, and you could say, I want you to imagine that you are Lightning McQueen or Portia, or what's the dump truck guy's name? I can't remember it right now, right? He's great. He's my favorite. Mater, got it. They can visualize themselves as that character, right? You can work on drifting your skis or drifting your board. You can rev up your engines. They're going to love to live in that imagination. But if you told them to imagine that they had to weave in and out of traffic, like on a race course, we're not going to quite get there. They've been in a car and seen that, but they haven't experienced it. They haven't done it, right? We might be able to put up some cones or some objects and have them weave around and saying, don't wreck your car, because it's something they can experience and they can see, but they're not going to have that kind of abstract visualization, right? Another example, years ago, I was riding up the lift, just helping one of our 3 to 6ers ride on the lift to get up to the top of the beginner area. I remember talking to this child, just hamming it up, chit-chatting, and I was like, what do you like to do at home? He said, I like to fly around in my rocket ship. I'm like, awesome. What do you build your rocket ship out of? He's like, I don't know, my dad and built some cardboard boxes. And if I had stopped there and if I was teaching this student, and I was like, great, I'm going to use this, what would I do? Well, we'd probably go fly to the moon or to Mars and navigate the hill. But again, because I understand this aspect of imagination with these children, I asked one more question to this kid. Where do you like to fly your rocket ship? His answer, around my house, right? That is the world that he lives in. So now I need to take that onto the hill. And instead of going to Mars, we could describe his kitchen. He can picture where his kitchen table is. Great. Let's go slide over to your kitchen table. Let's go fly there, right? That will work, okay? Also in these egocentric or these pre-operational students, we got to think that cognitively, they can only process 1, maybe 2 directions at a time. We cannot overload them with information, right? I was going to do a whole riddle. I'm going to pass that on that piece. But in a nutshell, we have to think about, all right, if I'm working with someone who's in the pre-operational stage, keep it simple, keep imagination into the world that they live in, and create an environment where they're feeling a part of a team, but yet they're learning next to each other, not necessarily with each other. Okay? This next stage of cognitive development is called the concrete operational stage. And now we're talking like that 7 to 11-year-old. So imagine everything we just talked about and turn up the dial. We've had more life experiences, more things to draw upon. So therefore, our brain has had more time to process information. What does that mean for us? Well, now we can have an understanding more of a cause and effect relationship in life. In that video, you could see the difference between the pre-operational student and the glass. When it went into the tall, skinny one, their perception was, well, that's a bigger glass. It has more water. Someone in the concrete operational state understands the cause and effect relationship. It was the same amount of water. You just put it in a different glass. That doesn't change the amount of water, right? This is important because now when we're working with this cognitive age group in our teaching, we can start to get into some cause and effect relationships. What is this key performance, board performance that we're trying to get to? What are you doing with your body? Now, visualization still works with these guys, but maybe not to the point of play. They don't want to be Elsa at this point, but they will relate to how something moves. So you can use these visualizations so that they can be more accurate. Okay. This age group, competition. Again, a lot of them have played team sports now. So here we can start to get into a little bit more of a group dynamic when it comes to solving a problem, like competition. These are all things that are going to stem and improve their cognitive grasp of the topic. All right, and this last stage is that formal operational stage. And then this, it says 11 and plus, but I'm gonna challenge that because there's more and more data out there that says a lot of adults don't reach the formal stage of operation. And I'm going to put that in terms of especially learning something new. I want you to ask yourself right now, have you tried a new sport in the last 10 years? Right? Something different that you didn't have ownership of? Would you say you were in the formal operational state? I tried windsurfing a while back, and I can tell you, you better give me one direction at a time. Don't tell me anything else. Let me play around with it. Then maybe you can get into some cause and effect of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it wrong. But I am not ready for any sort of abstract information. I am not ready to go think outside the box. Right? Why this is important is, again, I'm going to say that just because we're a certain age doesn't mean we're going to be in a certain box. Our job as instructors, as teachers, as educators, is to collect data from our students of what is their cognitive processing ability right now? What is their cognitive development in the environment and the situation that we're in right now? Now, what do I have to do to modify and adapt the way I'm going to communicate to match that need? Okay. So once this loads, we're going to do a little test here. I'm going to throw up a little riddle. My wife found this on ChatGTP. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read this riddle, and I want you guys to tie this to one of the stages of cognitive development. Okay. I think that the moon follows me at night, and taller cups just must hold more, right? I play pretend and talk to my bear, but don't yet know that you see elsewhere. So, what stage I am as I grow each day, learning to think in my own special way. So, in the chat, throw up, what cognitive stage of development do we think this riddle is? All right, we got some answers in the chat. Pre-operational, you are correct. Okay, another activity. We're going to move on. Now, this one, you might, if you have a piece of paper next to you, that would be good. If not, go back. That's okay. You can write it on your phone. I just lost the screen share. All right, but I'll tell you what it is. Okay. I want everybody right now to create a haiku about skiing or snowboarding. All right, I'm going to give everybody about 2 or 3 minutes. When you have it, put it in the chat if you are willing. So I want to see some haikus about skiing or snowboarding in the chat. So John said, what's a haiku again? I'm a math teacher. That's good. I'll give the answer in a little bit, but there are tools out there that you can figure that out. Okay, I see a few in the chat. Here's where I want to go with this. All I did was throw out a very simple problem with simple directions. Create a haiku. All right. I'm starting to see that there are some solutions to this problem showing up in the chat. If we had more time, everybody would come up with one. So there's a problem. Everybody got to an answer. What we're going to discuss now is the fact that not all of you use the same process to get to the answer. Right? So let's talk about that. Right? We have in here, I'm a math teacher. I don't know what a haiku is. Exactly. So if you heard that word and then you looked it up and said, oh man, poem, I don't know these things. Maybe you're not linguistic or word smart. Right? But yet once you started to play with it and then you realize that it's rhythm, we've got some beat, 5, 7, 5, and you started to kind of count some things out. And you're like, oh, I got this. Maybe you are musical in the way you like to think. Right? I threw out a problem. Was the first thing that you did try to figure out steps to solve that problem? Maybe you're logical. Right? In your haiku, when we're looking at it, is it about the conditions? Is it about views? Is it about the environment? Maybe you're naturalistic. Or is it more about the way something feels when you're moving on your equipment? Maybe you're more body kinesthetic. Right? Did you struggle to solve this problem because all you wanted to do was talk to somebody else and brainstorm and shoot some ideas off each other? Maybe you're more interpersonal. Or did you really like the fact that, hey, I got to just sit down and do this on my own and process and then throw it in the chat? Maybe you're intrapersonal. Right? Or in this day and age, did anybody just grab their phone, throw it in the chat GTP and say, what's a haiku about skiing or riding? Right? That is another multiple intelligence that's out there now, is this digital preference. Okay. So yeah, so what we're talking about, I'm going to share this again. Sorry, I'm getting the slideshow going. So it's a little bigger. Are Gardner's multiple intelligences. So for you linguistic people, here they are written out. Okay. All right. Let's take a second, look at those. What we're going to do next is, again, give my voice a break from your ears. And we're going to watch another little video that'll kind of highlight some of those. Let me grab it. I'm going to put it in the chat again. Hold on. I know this part's a little clunky, but we'll get there.
In 1983, American...
All right. So I don't know how clunky the last one was, but I'll throw this in the chat again. And I'll share the screen and just play it on this. This video is about 5 minutes.
Psychologist Howard Gardner published a book with a theory that there are 9 types of intelligence. To understand this theory, let's consider the problem of the Council of Newtown, who wants to build a bridge over the dangerous railroad tracks. But there is strong opposition from some citizens who don't like change. Despite the demonstrations, the council agrees to go ahead, and then hires a team of 9 experts from Smarts & Co. to get the job done. Let's introduce each one of them. Miss Picture Smart played a lot of hide and seek when she was young, and she loved puzzles. She has lots of imagination and ideas about shapes. Her job in the project is to create the plans, make the designs, and build a prototype. Mr. Nature Smart loves trees, and he has great ideas of how to minimize the impact of a bridge on the environment. He started thinking of these issues ever since the first time he went summer camping with Dad. He developed a passion for all living beings. Mrs. Number Smart is a nerd. She always was. In the playground, she was already calculating the sand buckets needed to build the biggest castle. In high school, she was the chess master, and everyone was so proud of her. She will calculate the costs, study workers' safety issues, and estimate the raw materials needed. Her concerns are the budget, resources, and risks. Mrs. People Smart arranges a town meeting and goes out to invite all the citizens to come. She was always good with people. As a kid, she spent most of the time outside with her neighbors. As a teenager, her mom explained to her that most people mean well, even if they have trouble showing their feelings. Today, everyone loves her, and she does a great job convincing everyone, even the most outspoken opponents. Miss WordSmart has been keeping a diary since she was young. In maths class, she wrote poems, and during field trips, she didn't talk to others, but instead studied the travel guide. For the big town hall meeting, she writes a convincing speech, filled with hard facts, big feelings, and good metaphors. Ever since he was young, Jimmy LifeSmart knew how to talk and entertain. Today, he shows his skills on the stage. He starts his speech with a personal story about his cat that once got lost on the train tracks. Then he delivers all the arguments with so much passion that all citizens can only agree with the plan. Miss WordSmart is delighted to see the impact of her work. Now, as construction starts, Mr. Body Smart gets ready to get things done. Even the children are inspired by his power and want to help. During the breaks, he plays football with his team, which is fun and teaches him balance skills he later can use high up in the sky. Madam Self-Smart knows a lot about feelings, our fears, joys, and angers. She learned this from her own past, where she started to reflect on herself. But she also reads a lot about feelings and talks to her friends about their emotions. During the construction, she is the positive force, motivates those that feel down, and solves tensions that can come up when we collaborate. While everyone is busy finishing the bridge, Mrs. Music Smart writes a song for the grand opening. She has loved music ever since she started playing the piano. Later, she moved on to hip-hop and jazz dance. At the opening ceremony of the bridge, she and her band performed the song. It was a fantastic team effort from all 9 of the Smart & Co.
Okay, whoever did that was definitely artistic as well. So, why is this important? Let's jump back in here real quick. There's some questions I want to ask yourself. Think about when you're out there teaching. Do you mostly teach through your own intelligent strengths? An example of that is if you're body kinesthetic and you constantly are asking your students, how did that feel? All right, that would be an example of that. Now, the next question is, well, how do we identify a student's preferred way to process information? All right. Obviously, there's two-way communication. We can find out what they do, just like in that video, a job, a history of what they're doing can give us maybe an assumption of how they like to think, right? But I want to dig that a little deeper. I think some of the best ways are to observe your students when they're not on task. What are they doing? How are they interacting with each other? Let's say you have a group lesson and you've been out there and you're teaching things and you're intentionally doing it in different ways. But all of a sudden you see a change in one of your students, one that you haven't seen before. Right then you grab that student and you go, that was awesome. What were you thinking about? their response is going to be a direct line into the way that they like to process or their multiple intelligence. So our job as instructors is, one, let's try to realize, are we constantly teaching in the way that we like to think because it's comfortable to us? Or are we able to start to modify and adapt our language to meet the needs of those individual students so that they can process the way that they want to? That's huge. So I'm going to talk about one more thing here, and that's reflection. So coming from the Teaching Snowboard School, and this is tied into kind of Kolb's, but you don't just learn through experiences. You have to reflect on those experiences to truly internalize them. And this is very important. So basically, learning cannot occur unless there's time for practice and reflection. So just because I did a great job of changing the way I talked about something and described something, what's more important is, how am I presenting this reflection piece to my student? Am I doing it to match their cognitive understanding of what's going on? So to break that down, like, what does it look like from a 4-year-old? How does a 4-year-old know that learning has occurred? It's not going to be a cause and effect relationship. It's not going to be some in-depth conversation. A 4-year-old might know that learning occurred because they can now jump off the snow and their equipment can stay parallel to the ground. In their mind, that might have been, hey, we're a frog and we're trying to jump onto a lily pad. They know that they were successful because they could jump onto the lily pad and not fall off of it. Right? So I'm going to have to reflect through that lens, very simple, through the imagination that works for that child. Versus someone who's older, how do they know? What does it look like for a 14-year-old? How do they know they've been successful? What does that reflection sound like? So to kind of cap this off and summarize, I started this by saying my belief of the importance of understanding this cognitive realm is so that I can speak the least to have the most outcome out of my students. I have to understand where their cognitive development is so that I know how much and when and where and how to present that information. I have to try to identify how they like to process information so that I can alter and modify the way that I'm describing some task, activity, or drill so it makes more sense to them. And then almost most importantly, I have to be able to reflect with those students through the lens that makes sense to them so that they know that learning occurred and they have time to internalize it so it makes sense to them. Some of my favorite parent interviews with kids at the end of the day make no sense to the parent because it makes sense to the child. Then my job is to bridge that gap to the parent and explain what that just meant from the child. All right. So thank you guys. Kept that right to about an hour. What I would like right now, one, if you have not filled out the attendance form, please do it. 2, take a minute, process this information that just came out and put in the chat of kind of where would you like to dig deeper? Where would you like more process, time to process this information so that I can help prepare for next week. So I'm with you next week and then you won't see me again for a couple weeks. But this will help me plan, all right? So let me state that again because that was a little jarbled. Next week, we're digging deeper, but it's going to be a little bit more communication with you guys, activities where you get to work together, possibly some breakout rooms. So what I'm looking for is, where would you like me to steer that if you have an opinion? Is there more in depth that you would like to go of anything that we talked about tonight? All right. So I'll stay on here and let those go into the chat. Anybody else, once you're finished with this, thank you very much. The first one is done. Hopefully many more that you guys can come attend, and hopefully you're going to enjoy the interactive pieces that are coming next. So thank you very much.